Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Joining me today is Marty Thomas. He is a fashion model and has been involved in the fashion industry for almost 3 decades. In that time, he has seen the industry evolve both in scale and in diversity. Over the course of his career, he has walked the ramps at some of the biggest fashion shows on the planet, including the Milan Fashion Week and the Paris Fashion Week. Most recently, he has gained a significant social media following through his online persona of Fashion Daddy, which, in my opinion, is absolutely brilliant. I've said this to Marty directly when we met, and I also say this here that a refined sense of gentleman's fashion is becoming rare in today's barrage of street style. It must be preserved, and Marty's work is a commendable effort on how to educate with class and sophistication. Marty is an immigrant from New Zealand, coming to Australia in the early 2000s. His life story is rich, full of highs and lows, some that he has shared in our conversation, and many that he has compiled in his memoir, A Slice of Heaven, that he will be releasing to his followers very soon. As always, I thank you guys for your support. If you are new to the podcast, kindly consider subscribing. If you are already subscribed, kindly leave us a comment or a like, because your engagement with my videos is the only thing that helps this channel grow. Also, if you have not done so already, kindly check out all of our social media platforms for our short form content. All of the highlights from this conversation and all of my past conversations are going to be up there, so do check that out. But anyways, without further ado, this is my conversation with Marty Thomas in The Gap. Coming off of the heels of the Australian Fashion Week. It's not the Sydney Fashion Week, it's the Australian
It's Australian Fashion Week for some reason.
Yes.
So it's Sydney in the limelight.
Yeah, so tell me something about that. What was the Australian Fashion Week like?
It was quite an intense experience. I was quite playful with it. I have a persona now that has grown or developed in the last year that I didn't have at this time last year. So my fame, if you like, or my notoriety started at Australian Fashion Week. That's what catapulted me into the limelight. Shall I talk about that now?
Yeah, for sure.
So last year, I am a model. I'm with a major agency in Sydney, and I began modeling when I was in my 20s. Actually in my teens, but I became a serious model full-time, trying to be full-time when I was in my late 20s, which is when I was in Europe. Then my life happened, and many years later, around 50 years old, friends were saying to me to go back into modeling. And that is why I'm now back in the industry, because this area had developed that is kind of new, which is called... Well, it's about diversity, but in my case, it's about the silver model, the mature male model who is still can fit the clothes.
Yes, yes.
Who hasn't shrunk, who still knows how to walk and do the model things. And there's this group of models worldwide, both male and female, who are silver-haired, and they're just fantastic people.
Yeah.
It's a whole. It's brought a whole new flavor to commercial print, even to the runway.
Yeah.
So that has changed the face of modeling. I mean, apart from diversity in other areas, age has been a plus for me.
That's good. That's good. So you're saying you took a break in between. How long was that break?
Oh, a good 15 years.
Okay.
Probably longer. A lot happened in my life, a lot of events that were life-changing. I won't go into them in depth, but I had some epiphanies. I had some moments where I took stock of my life and decided I wanted to focus on other things. And at a certain point, I got married and I had a family.
Yes.
And I was in that relationship for 15 years, and I have 5 children as a result of that relationship, which obviously is huge in my life. Very important.
You've been a busy boy.
Yes, well, parenthood is not... is a busy time.
It is.
It is.
I can testify to that.
From the beginning to the end. Exactly.
I can testify to that.
Exactly. There are ways to make, I think, parenthood an easier path. We don't all have that knowledge.
Yes.
And we all go with our gut in terms of how to deal with a situation. But it's tremendously joyful, it's uplifting, it makes you more than you were. And I think when we had our first baby, my daughter Lily, everything changed, you know, and all parents will understand this, you know, that first baby and the responsibility that you have for another life, which is entirely yours, it seems, you know, you and your partner have the responsibility to look after this new life, which is like a clean slate,
Yes.
a white piece of blotting paper, ready to, could become anything, could go anywhere.
Yes.
Needs nurturing, you know, needs care, needs an education in the best sense. That's challenging, and they would have to be the best years of my life.
Okay. So is that, are those the 15 years that you took the break?
Yes. So that's over now. My children have left the nest.
Okay.
Took a long time.
Yeah.
Lots of joyful moments, lots of amazing shared experiences. I have a lovely relationship, I think, with my children in spite of the age difference. You know, I'm in my 60s. My youngest is 20.
Yes.
Eldest is 28. So it keeps you youthful, I think. It's important that when you have a close relationship with your children, it makes you and allows you to bring back time. What is it that the word say? Yeah. It keeps you young in the best sense.
Yep.
And it's so nice for me now to have friendships with my children rather than being a parent, rather than being the authority figure, is to actually get alongside and to help in times of need, to be available within reason.
With somebody like yourself, the thing I love about talking to people who have experienced life as much as you have, you know, is that there is so much to talk about. Like you're talking about parenthood, you're talking about taking a break from an established career and then coming back and, you know, doing all of these things. As with the format of the show, I do first try to contextualize everything, you know, for myself to see where a person is coming from.
Yes.
Right. So for you, Marty, I would want you to wind the clock back right up to like your youth. You know, as with the format of the show, the nature of the show, we interview immigrants, and you're an immigrant from New Zealand, which is
technically I am.
You technically you are.
I have a New Zealand passport.
Yeah.
Which I'm very proud of. It's taken me around the world a few times. Honestly, I feel like Australia is almost a part of New Zealand. New Zealanders, we call ourselves Kiwis. I don't know why Aussies don't call themselves roos or kangaroos, but we call ourselves Kiwis. And I mean, we have a strong sense of nationality, I think, as New Zealanders.
Yes.
And there is lots of good about New Zealanders. For instance, I think as a trait or as a character, there's a lot of kindness. There's care. They listen.
Yes.
They are helpful.
Yes.
These are generalizations, but that's generally the experience of someone visiting New Zealand, apart from the incredible beauty of the place.
The nature of
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, I grew up in New Zealand. As a family, we used to travel by car, traveling around the South Island, traveling around the North Island, and going to these places. And for me, it was home. But for someone from the desert or someone from a country that is from Japan in the city, where it's all concrete jungle, to come to New Zealand and to go to somewhere like Wanaka or even the national park, to see the volcanoes, to see this incredible landscape that is quite otherworldly. Yeah. Very blessed.
Yeah.
And everyone needs to visit New Zealand for the landscape.
I intend to.
And it's so close.
It is.
You know.
It is. So one thing I do love about, like people club Australia and New Zealand together because they're all almost part of the same culture, really. But what I do feel New Zealand has gotten right, that Australia hasn't yet, is that New Zealand has inculcated its Maori origins into the fabric of the society in a much more smooth and a much more coherent way than Australia has.
Yes, let's say this without delving too deep into politics.
Yeah.
And I should say that I have Maori blood.
Okay.
A significant Maori amount in my DNA.
Okay.
Which I'm very proud of.
Right.
I didn't find out till later in life that I had Maori blood because of the history that was there, but I did, and my children love the fact that there's Maori. It's an amazing culture, as is the Aboriginal culture.
It is.
And I think, you know, the beginnings of what happened with the Indigenous people in New Zealand and Australia are not dissimilar.
Okay.
Colonial the ships arrived, there was a lot of bloodshed in New Zealand and in Australia. There was total disconnection. It's outrageous, the disconnection where you can refer to people as animals and not humans,
Right.
which has happened
Has happened.
in the past. Now, we're far away from that now, and I think the difference between Australia and New Zealand is that New Zealand has seen the problem, has addressed the problem, created several committees to deal with it.
Yes.
And that's not always the best way, but it shows that there is an acceptance in the New Zealand psyche to realise that the Indigenous is more blended and more acceptable and a rich part of history that's now shared. And Australia is not there yet. I feel that Australia has a way to go in terms of doing away with those labels.
Yes.
And they're hard labels to push away, but at some point we must, because you know, we're all human beings living in bodies and needing connection. So New Zealand, it's diverse.
Yes.
Also, New Zealand, like Australia, is now very culturally diverse because we have immigrants that are established for many years. So it's much more culturally diverse than it was, say, in the 50s, when it was quite clean cut.
Sure. Sure.
So it's, I would call New Zealand culturally diverse, especially in the cities in Auckland and Wellington. And that's been
Of course.
that's done great things for it as a place to visit. With
It has.
the food and the culture. Wellington's a very interesting place, more interesting now than when I lived there.
Yeah.
It's become a destination, which is nice.
It has.
My hometown.
Yes. Nice. So what year did you actually make the move from New Zealand to Australia?
About 2010.
Okay. So not that long ago. Okay.
I think, we've been as a family in Australia since about 14 years.
So you had your children and your family back in New Zealand, and then all of you moved together.
We did.
Okay.
There was again we had a period where we were together 24/7. I separated from my wife Jennifer. We agreed that in spite of our mission to bring these children up in this beautiful, pristine way, which is a whole other story.
Yep.
That we needed. I hadn't thought about how to say this. We needed to be authentic in ourselves, Jennifer and I, and the role that we had played as parents, even though it was so authentic and so heartfelt and so real. There was a new chapter ahead. So we parted very amicably. We are still very good friends. We get together and have blended family events quite often. That was the point at which we moved from New Zealand, where we were living, to Australia. And I homeschooled and I was house dad for the children for 6 months.
You homeschooled them?
Yes.
That's amazing.
We did homeschool the children for their early years.
Right.
And then at a certain point that became difficult after separating. So we put the children into a Steiner school.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Steiner system?
Actually, me and my missus were having these conversations very, very recently about, because my older daughter is about 4, so she's going to start school at 5.
Yes.
So these are the conversations that we're having right now.
Yeah.
My missus is all for homeschooling and Steiner. And she actually wants to go down that route.
I encourage you. I totally encourage you. I'm not here to put down education. Education is an important part of life, but I think that no one has the connection with their children that a parent does.
Yes.
And there is a willingness to listen to a parent that is advantageous for a child. And of course, education doesn't begin at 5. That's the thing. Education begins the moment the child arrives on earth.
Yes.
Those early years may not be verbal. It may not be. There may not be conversation, but energy-wise, and I think children are sponges, and they pick up so much information by watching and hearing, even from crawling on the ground.
Yep.
They are. I'm very aware that they are just absorbing energy and messages. So it's important to have a clear message. If you want a child who has a clear point of view, give them a clear message if you're going to share anything with them, or allow them to freely learn so they can form a clear message.
Sure.
I think that we get into difficulty in life when we're fighting between different points of view.
Sure.
I mean, we have to find a resolution somehow. Yeah. So homeschooling, all for it. It worked for my children. up until about the age of 12.
Yeah. My missus, she was, she advocates for homeschooling. Like, she loves the idea and the idea of the Steiner education. And she educated me on it because I didn't know enough about it. And now I've also come around to the same idea that, maybe homeschooling is maybe the way to go, because the way that the world and the way careers are being shaped right now, it's less about structured education as it was in the past century.
Agreed.
It's more about unlocking that creativity or the natural talent that a child is naturally gifted with. And more than that, just helping them become more resourceful for their own self.
Precisely.
Which is something that structured schooling does not provide.
It doesn't encourage. It's not encouraged.
It doesn't encourage, because school by its definition encourages uniformity.
Correct. Yes.
You're supposed to be uniform in everything, in the way that you think, the way that you do things, the way that you approach problems.
Correct.
And what that does is that in a lot of children's cases, it like for some children it might help, but for a lot of children it saps out the spark that they may have of individuality.
I think it's true. It's undeniable. And then, so the education of the young child is designed to, not necessarily to encourage individuality or uniqueness. And then the second is like a programming on certain paths. A limited number of paths are made available. My own example in my own life of this is when my father, we had that cliche conversation. I'm not sure how old I was. I might have been 14 or 15. And he said, you need to decide what you're going to do, son. You're going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
You're going to be an accountant.
Yeah.
You're going to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And I said, is that it? And he was completely serious, my father, a businessman, an accountant, an actuary, if you like. And he said, yes, I am being serious because I know that you have a creative side and I know that you like this, that, and the other thing, but you need security. So if you are an accountant or a doctor or what was the other one?
Lawyer.
A lawyer, you can then do these other things in your spare time. You can make a hobby of that. And I thought, I don't think so. Anyway, I esteemed my father greatly.
Yeah.
I think children, perhaps less so now, unfortunately. His words were gold. I didn't have anyone else to go to for that advice. So I said, okay, I'll be a lawyer. And my reasoning on that was, I actually didn't like the sight of blood. Can't stand the faint at the sight of blood. So I thought, I can't be a doctor because I'll be fainted on the floor when someone needs CPR. I was not good with math. It was not a strength. Yeah. So accountancy is totally out. Yeah. My father and I were like chalk and cheese in that regard. So lawyer, I thought, I'm good with words. I like talking. I like these. It sounds really good. So I said, okay, I'll be a lawyer.
And there's also a performative side to the lawyer.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. We've all watched those, even Judge Judy.
Or Suits.
Yes.
Suits, for example.
Yes. And I went to university and I studied law for 3 years. And I failed law 3 times.
Really?
The first year. Now, what did that do for me? And this is, I'm not playing the victim here, but this was my experience. And I think, when you push someone down a path that's not right for them, no good will come of it.
Yeah.
It may be a growing experience, and it will be no matter what. But 3 years later, I had struggled with the fact that I wasn't doing well in law. I felt that the way that I approached a situation of conflict was not the way that, it was not in a legal way.
Yeah.
So a legal way dissects both situations and finds reason to make something right or wrong.
Yeah.
Somehow, in my mind, I was more about looking beyond it to see the concept and what felt right. So it was a totally creative look. I had a creative mind. I'm not finding the right words here, but what it meant was I just could not succeed because I wasn't applying logic to learning the right way. I wasn't using I was taking the wrong perspective.
Yeah.
After the 3rd year, my dad said, okay, we're going to find something else for you to do. And I changed my degree to arts, and I studied subjects like Renaissance art and languages. And my whole life just lightened up. It became full color. So I was pushing myself to step into a role that wasn't a right fit for me. possibly now I would make a good lawyer, but it's too late because of my life view has changed. But at that time, it was like pushing me uphill.
Yeah.
So my advice on that regard is, and now let's bring this forward. I have my own children. They've been through school. I have, from the beginning, said, follow your heart. Because I didn't.
Yes.
I wasn't allowed to, and I want to give you that freedom.
Sure.
And my children are so diverse. They are such different individuals, and I think that was my gift to them, was to give them freedom rather than rules. Right. And that came out of me having too many rules, coming out of that background. So as parents, we have it's an enormous responsibility.
So on that, I have a question for you then, that you're somebody in the fashion industry, right? And now you see that 3 of your children are also going down that same path, or also in the fashion industry.
Yes.
So how do you feel with them going down that same industry, that you have a legacy in? And then as a professional now, how do you think the industry is different into what they're stepping compared to what you were stepping into back then?
I think there's a lot of stigma around modeling.
Yeah.
But less so now. And I did encourage my children into modeling. And I'm aware of the issues around modeling, such as vanity and all those things that come into it, and superficiality and material girl, blah, blah, blah. I'm aware of all of that.
Yeah.
But for me, truthfully, modeling opened up a world that just was not otherwise open to me. I found myself in Europe, and I didn't work a lot in those days. I did a job here, a job there, but I was there in the middle of it all. I was in Paris, I was in Milan, I was meeting people that I looked up to. I was living this incredible life with some support. I wasn't just there as like a backpacker. I was there as a working model. And it was a very exciting time for me, and I learned Italian. I made friends that I still have in the 80s from my time modeling there. It enriched my life, and it helped me travel in a certain way. It was a very rich chapter in my life, and I wanted that for my children. I want an exciting life if they want it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not about to push them here or there, but I encouraged them to model because I thought it encourages self-confidence.
Yeah.
You can't model if you don't have self-confidence. I mean, it's a fail. You've got to get in front of that camera and perform a little bit.
Yes.
And I guess my children have that ability.
Yeah, it's probably in their blood.
Well, I don't know whether there's a model gene in the DNA, but my son Casper, for instance, when he was about 14, he just decided he could do it, and he just did it. And he did all the poses, and he's very outgoing and very social. So it was a good fit for him.
Yeah.
For an introverted, studious child,
Yeah.
obviously it's not going to work.
Yeah.
My children are all quite extroverted. We're all, I call us the A personality family, because we're all right out there.
Right out there.
My daughter, India Rose, who has been modeling for many years, since she was 14 or so also, it has become a sideline for her rather than a main event. But she's very professional and very good at what she does. And at the time, she's not as tall as some models, so that was a problem for her. And she didn't succeed in the way she hoped because there was a height problem. And that brings us around to our conversation that needs to be had about the nature of the business now to what it was. Yeah. Incredibly diverse now.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'll focus on my diversity, which is age.
Sure.
I have a few diversions, but my main one is age. I'm 65 this year.
Yeah.
And I'm working more now than I did when I was in my late 20s. And it's different and it's better for me.
Yeah.
Why is it different and better? I know who I am now. I've had all those years of experience to make all those mistakes, to not make them or try not to make them again. So I've become confident in myself, in what I believe and what makes me feel good in listening to people. I'm a better listener now. I think Parenthood makes you a better listener. You've got to be listening. You can't just be talking as a parent. You've got to be receiving that information so you know how to.
Sure.
So coming round to diversity, my daughter was not tall enough. There were times when she was told she wasn't thin enough. And back in the 80s and 90s, you had a certain very stereotyped
image of a model.
Yes.
Yes.
that has changed so much.
Yeah.
In a good way. So that I feel almost now it's too free. I feel that we have perhaps no boundaries. But from that place of freedom, it's possible to find success. And so I would say to anyone now who wants to move into modelling, acting, publicity of that kind, have confidence, be yourself.
Yeah.
Because those barriers and boundaries are gone.
Yeah.
They really are. And you need to move into this new space where it's about you. So it's not about how tall, how wide, how thin, how old, or what colour you are, what
age you are.
Age. It's about your, I don't know how to describe it. It's about you as a person and your energy without being too woo-hoo. It's about your energy.
Being self-assured, I guess.
Confidence has so much to do with it. But, how can you be confident if you don't feel tall enough? How can you be confident if you don't feel that you can play that role? What role do we all play best? Us. Us being authentic. Because, I don't just work in modelling, I work in events, I work in the corporate world, and I'm often around people who are in a uniform, who are playing a role. And we all do that. To some extent, we always are playing a role of some sort.
Yep.
But when we can play us, when I can play Marty, I'm so happy. And that's a place of freedom. And I say to anyone who wants to move up in the world of modelling, be yourself, and you will be recognised. Because I think when you're being yourself, you can shine in an authentic way.
Yeah.
And whether it's commercial modelling, whether it's being with the top agency, whether it's just having an opportunity to express yourself in terms of your fashion, in terms of your style, that is an open book now.
Sure.
Which is good news.
Yeah. So in terms of fashion, I'll shift the conversation a little bit. So did you find that you had a sense of style or sense of fashion early on in your years, or is that something that you picked up as you went through the industry?
No, I definitely. I think I arrived on Earth dressed ready to go.
in your best.
I don't have a lot of memories of my very young age, but I do know that it's probably all my mother's fault.
Is it?
She was a very stylish woman in the best sense. She was always immaculately presented and a very beautiful soul, I think. We probably all see our mum that way, right?
Yeah, of course.
Which is the right way to see them.
Of course.
Anyway, I've seen pictures of me when I was young, maybe 2-3 years old, and I'm in a velvet waistcoat, brass buttons and a little cravat tie, and hair is perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm all, perfectly for a little portrait.
Sure.
And I think that I probably got used to that style. And I do think style, it's not something learned. You can learn it, but it's never going to really be authentic unless it's an expression of what's happening inside.
Yes.
So
you can take guidelines.
You can.
You can take
And we
guidelines,
need
but
them.
but you do like there's an etiquette to wearing a coat. There's an etiquette to
Yes.
wearing a tie. There's an etiquette to wearing the right kind of shoes for the right occasion, right?
Yes.
You can take those guidelines, but you need to bring a certain personal flair to it.
I think that that's the key. And then you can be yourself,
Yeah.
and you can feel good
Yeah.
in whatever situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes just going out socially, you want to have confidence. And
Yeah.
now, as a model and as a stylist, I'm moving towards helping people to find their style through the details, through the little things that
Yes.
make a difference.
Yes.
And my motto has always been classic with a twist. So take the classics. There's so much to work with.
Yes.
Beautiful tailoring through the ages. But we all love a period drama, say from the 18th or 19th century, and you've got everyone is in a top coat.
Yes.
And they're all wearing the same hat.
Yeah.
So there's a really homogenous style to society. And then we broke out of that in the 20s. We took off the corsets. Not the guys, most of them. But and we dropped the top hats, and we became freer.
Yeah. Liberation.
Yes. And I feel, in a sense, that 100 years later,
Yes.
in the 2020s,
Yes.
there's a similar move happening
Yeah.
towards freedom. And it just needs to be managed well, but it's an evolution, step in the evolution of fashion.
Look, I personally feel, fashion that's on the runway or that's on the magazines, that's always been very different to what is on the street. right?
Pretty much always.
It's always been different, right? It's
Yes.
always been exaggerated, or it's always been brushed up.
Often.
Right?
Yes.
But in terms of the casual style that people wear day to day, right? I personally have a gripe against street fashion.
Yes, tell me.
Yeah, I have a gripe against the
When you say
the
street fashion-
street style. Like I'm the guy if I'm going out on a weekend with family, right? I'd like to put on a good denim with boots and like a good jumper, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to dress up a little bit. I wouldn't just put on my sneakers and a track pant and just off we go.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So I have a gripe with that. I feel it's comfortable. It's easy. But mate, you got to put in some effort into it, you know?
Very good point. Very good. And look, I've thought about this a great deal because I'm all about dressing up, not dressing down.
Exactly.
For me, I need to make an effort to dress down. What am I going to wear?
Exactly.
And it's very easy to trigger people on this topic because
Because
you've
if you
got
dress
a lot
up-
of people in their
Yeah.
sweats and in their leisure wear
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, and in Australia,
Yeah.
let's not point the finger, but Australia is all about casual.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
It's all about, what do you call them, thongs?
Yeah.
I call them jandals in New Zealand.
Jandals, yeah.
Shorts,
Yeah.
a t-shirt.
T-shirt, yeah.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a statement. We're making a statement when we walk out the door, whether it is anti-fashion or fashion. It's always a statement. It's, I can't be bothered, or it's not important to me, or I'm going to do a dressed down look, or I'm going to do a dressed up look. But we always step out putting clothes on, and there's a choice there.
Yes.
It's a question of degree, and I feel like casual is fine. It's fine, and it is a personal choice, but
Yep.
it is also a statement.
It's also a
It
statement.
can't be denied that it is a statement.
And it can't work in all occasions.
No,
it
but you know,
can't.
when you say you like to dress up, say for a family event on the weekend,
Yeah.
I spent quite a lot of my life in Europe, in Milan and Florence, and living overseas, and the Europeans love an opportunity to dress up.
Yes.
So at one point, this is just an example of turning things around. We were living in Italy as a family with young children, and we went to a local production which our children were in. It was a school production. So not the opera, not the ballet, not La Scala, just a local town. All the parents were there in the latest designer clothes, so
Yeah.
beautifully, immaculately dressed. And I felt that that was okay because it was really important for them. It was a real occasion, and their children were in the production.
I think
And
it's
it was
the
just
culture.
so festive and
It's the
joyful.
culture, I guess.
Yes. So no judgment,
Yeah.
but it's a choice.
Yeah. Why I actually enjoy all of the posts that you put out on Instagram, especially, you know, how to dress to a color, or like, you know,
Yes.
the whole tutorial that you go out with.
Green
like,
is the new
you know,
black.
when you dress up the whole thing, you dissect the whole look in your post. What I love about that is I have hardly come across any post of yours that is a dressed down version. It's always it's not like you're going over the top with any kind of look, but there's a suaveness to it,
Thank you.
you know. And that is what personally a person of my age, let's say a 30-year-old, found that relatable.
Yes.
Because I don't find myself relating to a lot of the street styles.
I know what you're
I
saying.
find myself relating more to that kind of fashion.
I understand. I hear you. So with street style fashion, there is your average street style where just I don't care. I don't care how I look, or I'm deliberately dressing down because I don't want to put a lot of effort into my look. Then you've got elevated street style, which is becoming a thing.
Yes.
And many great photographers do this incredible candid photography of people, and you know, it might be the coat they're wearing, or unusual clothes, or scarf, and it's people. It's not posed, although it is in a sense. It's capturing street life. So there's that street style is happening where people are taking a little more care to express themselves in what they wear out every day.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that freedom. For instance, if you are a banker, you are in a certain role, a nurse, a doctor, you have a uniform.
You have a uniform, yeah. That's it.
And that's challenging, so you can only do so much with that.
Yeah.
But what's nice is when you do have the opportunity to be yourself,
Yes.
whether it's a family occasion, whether it's a night out,
Yep.
that's when you can make those choices that show who you are,
Yeah.
which is totally unique.
Yeah.
We're all completely unique, and we need to understand that.
Yeah.
Because that's the key, I think, to style, is to to find your
Yeah.
unique qualities and let them be
Yeah.
expressed.
Yeah.
And you're going to have your own style.
Yeah,
Not
like
someone
like
else's.
like you said, like some people might ostracize us for this, but some people might say that it's individuality and everybody is free to wear what they want.
True.
I get that, I respect that, but I'm also of the opinion that if you're going out and if you're presenting yourself as the best version of yourself, you deserve to put in effort to be the best version of yourself.
I agree. And again, I hear very much what you're saying.
And it doesn't have to be exuberant or expensive.
It doesn't need
It
to
doesn't.
be flamboyant. It can be something as simple as
Yeah.
wearing cufflinks. It can be changing your watch. It can be the way maybe you wear layers together. It's just that slight difference
Yeah.
that it's an expression of
Yeah.
you. It's coming through the cracks.
And one thing I love about some of the posts that you post, like a few of your Instagram posts, in the description you mention out what you're wearing.
I do.
Right.
Look, that's a professional thing from the sense that if I'm wearing something from a brand,
Yeah.
I should mention it professionally.
Yeah. But what I do love about that is that among the brands, you also mention that you've got something like a scarf or something. You
Yeah.
got it from a local thrift shop.
Vintage.
Or vintage. I love that. You know
Well-
why? Because that shows people that it doesn't have to
accessible.
be. It's accessible.
Totally.
It's not about the brand. It's not about having these high ticket items that you have
No.
to wear to look good. You can actually go to a thrift shop. You just need to have the eye and the sensibility that what can I pair together.
I totally agree. And it's very much what I'm about. Now, I don't know why that's what I do, but I've come out of for some reason, I like to put something, I picture it in my mind,
Yeah.
I visualize it, and then I make it happen. And to make it happen, I don't need to go out and buy all these expensive items. It doesn't make sense to me to go and spend $20,000 on a bag. I don't think that I would ever do that. Even
Yes.
if I had a spare $20,000, it wouldn't make sense to me.
It wouldn't.
What I love is going to a vintage store, and there are many in every city, so you're never far away from one. And it doesn't need to be high-end vintage. It can be Vinnie's. It can be the local. My favourite store is called Wayside, and it's in King's Cross, and they have next door to it a food kitchen. So all of the proceeds, I think, go to help that space. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
So you can't really argue on the prices.
Yeah.
But there, I found the most amazing things.
Yeah.
And a part of me loves the fact that there's a history, and what I'm wearing is unique.
Yes.
Because lots of people are going out, they're shopping for $100 items, $500 items, several $1,000 items, and they're picking it off the rack, and there are several others. So for me, fashion and style is about being different
Yes.
from the others,
Yeah.
not being the same.
Yeah.
And the key to me is being able to use vintage items. I think it's really important for style to be accessible. We can't put price tags on something
Exactly.
like
And it
personal
shouldn't be.
style.
It
No.
shouldn't be, because what that does is if you put a price tag to fashion, then that in itself is
It's elitist.
it's elitist.
It is.
It's gatekeeping. That only if you are making a certain amount of money,
Yes.
only then you are allowed to be fashionable,
Correct. Which
doesn't have to be.
No, that goes against the grain with me. And I don't divulge the cost of the items that I'm putting on. But a good example of what you've just referred to is one of the dressing reels where I put on, it is the green reel, the famous one. I don't know why it just went everywhere. Someone said to me, I wish I could afford to dress like you.
Yeah.
And I try to respond personally, because I think I'm a personal kind of guy, and I've
Yeah.
always got an opinion, and I like to keep it nice.
Sure.
So I always try to, not just to comment, but to comment nicely, because not everyone loves what I do. And that's not everyone needs to, because, everyone has their own personal way to dress and
Yeah.
with their own style. The total cost to me of that outfit that I put on that reel was, well, let me give you one example. The suit that I was wearing off the rack is over $1,000. I bought it. This is between you and me.
Right.
I bought it for $40.
Right.
The whole suit.
Right.
It had barely been worn. And I'm going through the racks later. And it's a brand suit. It was linen and cotton. It fitted me.
And it's treasure.
It fitted me perfectly.
Yeah.
So, and the shoes were gifted from my partner. The scarf was gifted to me. But a scarf is, it's $100. So in other words, that outfit that millions of people saw cost me under $500, well under $500. And it's not to be cheap at all. And, there's another side to this conversation which I quickly want to refer to, and that is that it's important to value your items of clothing and sometimes to see them as an investment.
Yes.
Because there's too much cheap clothing.
Yes.
I want the look, but I don't want to pay the price.
Yes.
Is a common theme.
Yes.
That's fine. So it's important to find the reality in all of this. The world of fashion is it's so in your face. The big labels, the brands, the stories. So for me, I love organic fabrics like silk and cotton and linen. I prefer them to artificial fabrics. I think they're healthier to wear. Most of the clothing, the vintage clothing, is not synthetic. The tailoring sometimes is amazing.
Yeah.
People don't go to the effort these days that tailors like Alaya and early Versace for men, all of these labels that I'm spouting out, there's real quality there in the fabrics and in the making.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice to think, you don't need to save, but you think, I spent $150 or I spent $500 on that scarf, on those cufflinks, because there's a value there. It makes you feel good. So if you want to spend a lot of money on an item because it has value, that's important. It's important to realize that the value of something is in its importance to you and also what it's made from and how it's made. And I appreciate that. I'm not here to, to say don't buy a designer handbag. Do what you choose.
Yeah, buy it
just
if it makes
see
you
the
happy.
value.
Yeah.
Because you can also buy vintage designer bags and you
Yes.
can buy vintage designer clothes.
Yeah.
You can have clothes made to measure, which
Yeah.
is another whole step, which I encourage because, and that's something I'm stepping into now, is made to measure clothing.
Yeah, right. I like the point that you made about thinking of some items in your wardrobe as an investment. Because, for example, like a long coat. You buy a good long coat, you buy the best that you can actually afford.
Yeah.
And that is my advice to people, that if you're going to buy a statement item, buy the best that you can afford. Don't go all out for it. Buy the best that you can comfortably afford and think of it as an investment, because a long coat or a jacket or a jumper or a pair of good jeans is something that lasts
Should
you
last.
that lasts you for years and years. So you would want to buy a good item and make it last for that long.
Yes. Very true. And I mean, we don't really need to get into the discussion on the disposable clothing, where the clothing is not made the way it was in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know what name to use for it, but it's possible to buy something for $30. It's fast clothing, like fast food.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy
for anyone.
Not healthy for the earth.
And we all want things immediately.
Yes.
I've seen something, I want that now.
Yeah.
So, again, on that same track of thought, I'm working with a tailor at the moment in Sydney, and he's making items for me to wear. And because of my long arms and my body shape, it's hard for me to find something off the rack that's a good fit.
That's a good fit.
It will fit me in the body, but it's too short in the sleeves. So instead, he's making it to fit me. And that's amazing. So that is something I encourage. If you want something that fits beautifully, have it made.
Yeah.
Choose the fabric, invest a little more in that, but it will fit you and it will last because it's quality. So there are so many choices in terms of clothing, but honestly, between you and I very rarely buy new clothes off the rack.
Okay.
And that's not because I'm gifted things, which I am now, which is I'm very grateful for. It's because I made a choice some time ago that I love vintage clothing. So I go out and look for what I'm looking for. And I generally find that I can find what I need in vintage stores. So that's saving that whole process of it.
Sure.
It's not good. It's not very commercial, but
I'll shift the conversation a little bit. Okay. Now I want to, since I've never spoken to a person who's worked in the fashion industry before, somebody who's a model, right? So I want to get a little insight into that life, let's say, right? So being a model, you're living a life that is truly larger than life, right? And you see this like walking the runway at Milan Fashion Week or Paris Fashion Week. It's not something that everybody gets to do.
True.
So, tell me a little bit about your experience, like a kid from New Zealand being able to go to all of these amazing, fantastic places, having to experience the runway at Paris Fashion Week or Milan Fashion Week, and having to live this life and travel to these places, meeting the kind of people that you meet. What was that like? And
Yeah.
first answer that, and then I'll come up with the following
Look,
question.
that it would have to be a highlight for me of my life was I made the decision to travel to Milan and go for the big time. I had been modelling in Wellington, in my hometown, the odd fashion mall parade, some campaigns, some TV commercials since I was about 15, 14 even. I started.
Yeah.
And it's again because I was tall, and my friend said, "You've got to model," so I did.
Yeah.
But I was 26 when I made the decision to go to Milan and full immersion, get right into it. So that's a lot older than most models. Most models who go to Milan are teenagers. They're 18 to 20.
Okay.
Girls and boys.
Okay.
Both. So that was interesting for me because I was coming in from a different perspective. A little older, I made different choices. But I landed on my feet. It was a huge risk. I had worked in restaurants. I had had a couple of little businesses in Wellington. I'd been to university, got myself a degree-ish. And then 1986, I remember it well. I have a very close family. I was very close to my family. And it was a big step for me to move away. But I arrived in Paris, visited some agencies. I had set everything up. I had interviews with these top agencies. No go.
No go.
Not the right look.
It's a tough industry to break into.
It was much tougher back then.
Yeah.
Way much tougher.
Yeah.
You had to be tall. You had to be a certain look. I was too exotic.
Okay.
Yes.
You were exotic.
I was exotic.
Wow.
I was totally exotic. It was American crew, you know. It was blonde, blue-eyed, chiseled.
Not a hair on the body.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So at that time, I clearly wasn't exotic.
Yeah.
You know, Italians and Spaniards and Europeans were not working in the modeling industry. It was mostly a clean-cut American look that was
Really?
And I had curly hair, and I was always in the sun. So I'm naturally dark.
Yeah.
So I went to Paris, no go. I was unperturbed. I carried on. I hit my ticket to Milan. So I arrived in Milan. I'd already set up interviews with some top agencies. The first agency I went to visit was Fashion Models.
Okay.
Very famous.
Yeah.
And I walked into that agency with my cards and so on, and I met Maristella, who is the head booker there. She was the head booker there. She's still working in 2024 as a men's booker in Milan, which is extraordinary. She took one look at me and called me over, and they basically signed me on the spot, which was just a dream come true. And she said, "Marty," I was Martin then.
Martin. Yeah.
We had a model called Carlos, and he was our only Hispanic model.
Okay.
And she said it wasn't about how he looked. It was about his energy.
Yeah.
He was just so easy and so relaxed and real.
Yeah.
And she said, "I want you to be our new Carlos.
Okay.
And I will help you." And I never looked back. And I didn't work a great deal. I worked here and there, but the jobs I got were good jobs and very exciting. And from Milan, I went to Paris. And once I was signed in Milan with Fashion Models, I was signed with Carrion Models in Paris, which was a top agency. And I went to Paris. I was booked for the shows. And coming full circle, I was booked for the Thierry Mugler show in Paris. Now, Thierry Mugler in the 80s and 90s was just I think the most creative designer on the planet for me.
Okay.
Incredible style, incredible tailoring, and very innovative. He's had a comeback now.
Okay.
And even though he passed away, his clothing, his label is still running.
Okay.
So for me to get the Thierry Mugler show was my agency was so excited. And I was excited. It was a very small show, just 12 men's only show. And these beautifully tailored clothes. Yeah. And I had curly hair, and they straightened it, and I had this weird look.
Yeah.
I think they liked my, distinctive profile.
Okay.
You know, sharp features.
Yeah.
And subsequently, I did a couple of catalogs for Thierry Mugler also, but that was a high point. I did a few other shows, and in terms of lifestyle, it enabled me to live in Paris for 3 months. It was during the winter, but it was so beautiful, and I got to know the city. It's a very rich experience for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's how little Marty got from Wellington to the runway, Thierry Mugler, which was a high point. And then from there, many other chapters in my life.
Yeah.
Speaking of chapters, and I will come to this in the conversation, I have written a book.
Okay.
It is a memoir called Slice of Heaven, and it's like the early part of my life, and it's from the beginnings really through to the time when my youngest son was born,
Sure.
2004. So it's that early part of my life that talks about Europe, talks about traveling with my young family, choices we made. So I went to New York and I went to acting school.
Did you?
I got accepted into a summer school for acting for 2 months in upstate New York, and then I was accepted for the full-time program. So I studied acting for 2 years in New York at the National Shakespeare Conservatory, which was a very boutique school. And then I thought, okay, this is all going really well. I've been a model, and I'm not going to be a top model because I'm too exotic, but I can be an actor. And I went to Hollywood, to Los Angeles, and spent a year there, waiting for fame to come get me. I thought, we need a leading man.
Yeah.
And I felt I had the stature and the character to play a leading man.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether I had the acting skills, but my acting classes went well, so I thought I can do it.
I can do it.
But those, the opportunity didn't happen. I spent a year in Hollywood, and I had a lot of fun, and there was a lot of partying, and I had this amazing house with great friends.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful, rich chapter of my life, but in looking back, everyone I met either was an actor or wanted to be an actor or had been an actor.
And this was Hollywood in the 90s?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, in the early 90s. So I feel like that's when my life turned a corner and I went back to New Zealand and some things happened which were life-changing, and that's when I got married, and that's when I started a family and pulled back from the modelling for a period of time. And I only returned to modelling in Sydney in 2015. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
So
So follow-up question to that. Kid from Wellington goes to Paris, goes to Milan, goes to Hollywood. At some point, you must be like taking a step back out of your own shell and thinking, what is this life, that I'm leading?
That's exactly what I asked myself.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling fulfilled.
You weren't?
No.
Okay.
No, or I would have stayed there. I could not stay in Los Angeles.
Do you feel that the industry or the places that you were or the people that do you felt that it was all very superficial? Did you feel that it was not innate?
I feel that the to some extent the acting industry, but certainly the modelling industry can be very unforgiving.
Yeah.
Back in the day, more so.
Also.
So if you didn't fit, then you didn't fit. And most of us are not as thick-skinned as we pretend. So my advice to anyone wanting to model now is, you've got to have that self-confidence which can't be shifted. Or you will just be pushed over.
Yeah.
Because it's, it's a cruel world out there.
It is.
It's competitive.
It is.
And I mean, even now I go to castings sometimes and I'm sitting in a room, perhaps for a TV commercial, and you look around the room and you'll see maybe up to 6 people who look just like you.
Yes.
Because that's the type.
Yes.
So who's going to get the job?
Yeah.
And then it is about how you look, but that's in the brief. So it's really about a connection between how you look and who you are. They're going to choose who you are, not how you look.
How you look. Because everybody looks the same.
Within reason.
Reason.
None of us look exactly the same.
Yeah,
we haven't started cloning yet, have we?
Yeah.
But it can be a blow to your self-esteem when you are there and you're looking at these people that look just like you and thinking, well, what will make the difference?
Sure.
Who are they going to choose?
Sure.
So you've got to be prepared to realize that it's a game of chance in a sense. But if you go in with confidence and that confidence comes through in your performance, that speaks for itself. And I've gotten jobs that I didn't expect to and not gotten jobs that I did.
That you did.
So you got to leave that up to whoever's choosing and just go in there and be your best self.
Your best self.
Which is about feeling good about yourself in every regard, feeling confident, dressing the part. Confidence, I think, is built on a number of layers. And they're boxes that you can tick, and then you're more assured of feeling good in that moment.
Yep. Good.
I think those cliches, there is some truth in them, but it is becoming less so. So there's more work available because it's more diverse. So a lot of the time, brands are looking for real people. because they realized, and essentially everything comes down to the money, doesn't it?
Yes.
Is this going to be a profitable choice or not?
Yes.
In view of that necessity to be successful financially, they are wanting more connection between the viewer and the product. So more relatability. And in that regard, I'm happy because I am older.
Yeah.
Unashamedly, unabashedly.
Yep.
I'm older, and I think I want to see personally more classic models, both
Yep.
male and female,
Yes.
in the magazines and on the runway.
Yeah.
I can still walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I live a lifestyle to keep my physique in order, so I haven't ballooned out where I can't wear model-size clothes anymore.
Sure.
That's a small price to pay. Perhaps being careful about diet, and
those are actually healthy things to do anyway. Even if
Totally.
you're not, even if you're not a model, like just looking after your physique, eating healthy, exercising.
Agreed.
Those are things that you should be doing anyway.
Precisely, and that brings me to I'm working as a model in some ways more than I ever have at the moment, working with big brands, and that's great. But it's not everyday work. It just isn't. It can't be in Australia. The market's not big enough. So I'm supplementing that with many other things. And of course, I am creating content and telling stories and moving more into lifestyle, into property, into food, and into health.
Yep.
And a lot of this has come, it's a big part of who I am.
Yep.
I mean, I'm much more than what you see. We all are. But a lot of people have asked me about my diet, my lifestyle choices, about health. And I feel that no matter what we're doing in life, if we don't have health, we don't have anything.
Of course.
So it really is paramount. And I'm on this journey from the superficiality of fashion, where it all started, and the materialism of fashion, towards, through the lifestyle path, towards health and wellness. Wellness is a funny word, because wellness suggests that that's something you can aspire to, whereas wellness essentially is our state of, it's our right. It's where we began. It's a state of being. It's not something that we can achieve. What am I trying to say? I just think we need to put things in perspective and realize that our bodies are incredible machines. The systems are amazing. The ability to repair ourselves, to almost to heal ourselves, if we treat ourselves well, put in the right fuel, sleep sufficiently, and honor what's sometimes called our temple. It's very important. And for me, it's a key to having the energy, which I feel like I have a young person's energy, and that carries me through and keeps me buoyant in the industry. And that's because I think I have a reasonably healthy lifestyle. I'm careful about what I eat. I look after my body. And that's important for anyone in any industry. So health is something that's on the horizon for me. And I'm working towards more diversity, I suppose, in terms of my portfolio, taking fashion with me, because it's part of who I am, but bringing that into how to travel in style.
How to travel.
Having prowess in the kitchen. There's nothing like a guy who can cook.
Of course.
And I believe in really a simple approach to food. So I'm going to move into some cooking. Step aside, Stanley Tucci. Marty's on his way in. I think that it's important to keep all of those aspects aligned, because we're whole people. It's not just about our outward appearance. It's about so much more than that. So that's the future for me, is hopefully being able to, I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk with you. I love talking. I like sharing. I think it's important to share honestly, but not forcefully. I've come out of that background, back in the day, and that's all in my book. But now I think it's important to be to show compassion, to listen, and to think from the other side. In other words, to consider what someone else's point of view is and why.
Looking at it from like an outsider's perspective, looking at you and the content that you make, and based on what you just said about health and well-being, and taking everything forward with the age that you're at, I think you're at the right spot at the right time now, because I imagine a 30-year-old Marty or a 30-year-old model speaking about these same things would not have the same kind of impact as as you right now, because people look at it, they look at, okay, this is a 65-year-old guy who's in arguably the shape of his life. You know, he looks fantastic, he dresses well, he can cook, you know, and he's got this wealth of life experience that he's just putting out there and sharing. People would gravitate towards that more, you know, and that whole persona that you've created, the fashion daddy persona, you know,
yes.
So I think that is more amicable, that's more approachable for people, it's more endearing for people compared to, let's say, a 30-year-old model right now just setting up an Instagram for themselves. That would border more towards vanity than what you're doing.
Possibly so. The fashion daddy story is an interesting one.
Yeah. So, how did that come about?
I mean, I don't always call myself fashion daddy because it is very tongue-in-cheek and it is a little naughty, but I think that's important to have a sense of humor.
It is.
I'll tell you how it happened. So when I went to Milan and was working there was another model with my agency. His name Paul Mason.
Okay.
Very handsome Canadian.
Okay.
And with my same agent. Now, Paul has had a very interesting life journey, and he is now Fashion Santa.
Fashion Santa?
Fashion Santa, yes. I encourage anyone listening to look up Fashion Santa.
Yeah.
Such an interesting character. So there's no one else like him in the world. He often wears red, very tailored suits. He's very tall like me, possibly taller. And he has a long white beard.
Wow.
And white. He's all white.
Right.
So he's kind of like he is literally Fashion Santa. So he can wear all the fashion clothes and he looks like Santa. And he's very kind. He's got these kind eyes.
Yeah.
And most of his work benefits children, underprivileged children or children with health issues. So it's all very feel good. And when I thought of Paul and what he'd achieved building this brand, I mean, he flies all over the world as Fashion Santa. They fly him into all over the world to promote often Christmas. Yeah. But I thought, well, what if I do Fashion Daddy? Yeah. And I won't be limited to Christmas time. Yeah. I can be Fashion Daddy year round. Yeah. And it seemed like such a good idea. And then I tested it out and it sort of felt good. So some people know me as Fashion Daddy. And I'm still, I mean, I don't call it's not Fashion Daddy, I'm still The Life of Marty Thomas is my Instagram identity because I kind of don't want to lose Marty Thomas. But Fashion Daddy has worked for me. Yeah, Fashion Daddy is like an alternate persona of yours. Precisely, alter ego. Alter ego. Yes, and I've had a lot of fun with it. It is. It's really important to have fun with everything we do. You know, we can't get too serious. Yeah. Or we get lost in the mix. What I found is that Life of Marty Thomas is, you know, with all of your modeling jobs or, you know, the stuff that you're doing, you post it over there about whatever's going on in your life. Yes. That is the Life of Marty Thomas. But then Fashion Daddy, all the posts that are from Fashion Daddy, they're basically about advice, isn't it? It's about fashion advice, it's about apparel advice. Yes. It's about like the patisserie that you were reviewing. Yes. It's all about that. I'm glad you liked that. Yeah. Do you think I should do more of that? I think personally, as a viewer, the thing that actually made me follow you in the first place was just practical fashion advice that you were handing out. Yeah. And that's something that is missing in today's day and age. Yes. A lot of young men out there are missing that mature guidance on how to dress effectively, not necessarily expensively. Yes. But you know, just having a sense of fashion. Yeah. You know? No, that's great feedback. Thank you for that. And I'm very much about colour, and I think I have a unique take on how to put colours together. At least I feel that. Yeah. I am careful to say this is what I would do, not this is what you must do, because I grew up with so many rules. We all did. We've come out of 100 years of rules as to how you can dress. And all those rules are being broken, sometimes wildly in fashion. You know, go to Australian Fashion Week, sometimes it's very extreme. Sometimes someone's making a very extreme statement in order to break the norm, in order to allow a crack. Yeah. And that's all good. But then as a young person growing up now and looking at fashion, it's a crazy world. So I think it's very important to find a connection between what works for you. Yes. What is your personal style so you find a comfort zone where you can, which is a platform that you can move from. Otherwise, it's like, there are no rules. We can't live in a world without rules. However, those rules that we set for ourselves ideally need to come organically, and then we can find joy in what we do. We can find expression.
Yes.
We can stand out in the crowd without offending.
Yes.
It's this delicate balance, this sort of harmony that we need to find.
Yeah.
And the only way we find that, I believe, is connecting here rather than here.
Yeah.
It's this is the feel-good place, and this is going to question you, saying, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
No, someone won't like that. No, this is what they're doing over. No,
Sure.
it's too radical.
Sure.
All the questions come from here, but the essence, the dreams, come from here.
Sure.
And that's our place of connection.
Sure.
So somehow I want to get from this perceived place of superficiality, the fashion world, deep into the meaning of life.
Yeah.
I want to make that journey and take my followers, those that want to follow along with me,
with you.
travel. In terms of travel, I want to be traveling because I have this unique, very positive, I think, look on life. And I think there's so much of the world that we can learn from in the details, in other cultures. I want to experience that. I want to look at cuisine. I want to look at... good living should not be about your budget.
Yes.
It should be about choices that you can make without having to break the bank for some.
Yep,
I mean, choose to go
yep.
high end if you wish to.
Yeah.
That's a freedom. That's a choice for some. But we should not be limited. It's all about what brings us joy. And that
Sure.
can be the smallest thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have a big price tag.
Yeah, price tag to it. Exactly. It just has to feel right.
Exactly.
Right. Love that. Love that. I had one little naughty question that I wanted to ask you. Right. So.
A secret question?
So you're obviously you're part of the fashion industry up in Europe in the mid 80s to late 90s, and you were in LA and everything, right?
Yeah.
And you're living this life that some people only see on the screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in there in the middle of it.
Yeah.
With that must have come some very wild experiences, really wild stories out there. So I want you to tell me one story that you found yourself in a situation and you actually had to take a step back, that what the hell just happened, or like this is actually happening, or like you ran into someone, or you found someone, or you found yourself in a position that you were like, oh my God, this is actually happening.
Oh my goodness. I did have a lot of those experiences when I was 26, 28 in Europe, in New York. But I have to say, and I have thought about this, one of the most peak experiences that I've had was very recent.
Really?
And ironically, it's in my stories right now. I was chosen to go to a private island to play the role of a butler. And I was flown there on a helicopter. Now, helicopter rides, they don't come cheap. And I'm so just, and this is not a commercial for the beer company that I worked for. It's because this really was an incredible experience.
Yep.
It is the top experience, this particular one. Sure. And that is that, on the helicopter, landing on this exquisite private island, being treated like a king there, and then also doing all of these crazy activities. Yeah. And being the center of attention. I mean, it's like I was a star in a movie.
Sure.
And it was such an amazing team. And I mean, this is I think $25,000, not to drop names or numbers, but it's a very expensive, the finest example of accommodation in that part of Queensland. And I was there. There I was. Yeah. And
in the center of it all, and all of and the people are there to film you as the butler,
and being paid handsomely for it. Wow. And I thought, it doesn't get much better than this.
Yeah.
And then being able to share that with that experience makes it more exciting. Yes. It really was. It was outstanding.
And it's a really fun character as well.
It is.
It's a fun character. And that, now that you told me that you tried to have your hand at acting, that kind of scratches that itch as well. That you got to play a certain character, not just like you were fashionable, of course. You were in that white jacket and black tie, but you also got to play a certain role. Yes.
Well, I have worked in hospitality for many years. That is my background, and I still work in events in the corporate world. So, excuse me, I'm used to that role. And I think it's not as popular. The role of roles in hospitality are not as esteemed here in Australia as they are, say, in Italy. Where it's revered, the role of host or waiter
Yeah.
or sommelier. It's
Yeah.
a revered position.
Yes. Yes.
And it's a lovely sharing.
Yeah. And there's a classiness attached to it.
There is.
Yeah.
Not so much here, but no, I did enjoy playing Rupert, and I think Rupert will be back again. I'm hoping.
No, I love it. I love it.
Keep him alive.
I'll post a link to all of those Rupert posts in the description for this video. I'll also be Rupert should be appearing on the screen right now as well. So I'll put it on. But I saw those. There 3 videos have come out
Yes,
so
and
far.
we've got about 3 or 4 more.
Yeah,
That's the whole little story.
No, I love it.
It's,
One's you fancy a ride on the helicopter, or fancy a ride on the jet ski.
That's right.
But
Yes.
I love it. Absolutely.
But I
love
mean,
it.
and someone just said to me today, you
Yeah.
know, who did your stunts? Well, I did them all. I mean, I did all of those activities, which
Lovely.
I think I'm proud of myself at 65. And last year, I don't know whether I told you, I had a total hip replacement
Did you?
in August.
Wow.
So August of last year, I was out for about a month, just recovering. And here's another funny thing, if you want to refer to it later, and that is that when I was in the hospital, I did a reel. Have you seen this reel?
No, that one.
So you know how I do dressing reels and I use whatever's around me?
Yes.
Well, my partner Nick and I, and I'll tell you about that too. We decided to do a dressing reel in the ward.
Really?
So I just used what I could reach, and I won't say any more. I want you to watch it.
Really?
And maybe you want to share it because I'm really. It's one of the funniest.
Yeah.
It got 1 million views.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's encouraging because it's, you know, hospital's not a nice experience for most people, but there's always a silver lining.
Yeah.
You know, there's always some fun. The staff are usually
Yeah,
amazing. You
yeah.
can connect in a ward, and we need support through that
Yes.
sometimes traumatic experience. So it's uplifting.
Yes.
And I want to do more of that. I want to do more comedy. I don't try to be funny. It's just that, you know, in that situation, it can't not be funny because I literally dress up in the hospital gear. I'll let you watch it.
I'll have a look. You know,
Yes.
but the way that you speak, the way that you present yourself, I think when you say you want to do comedy, I think satire would be right up your alley.
Yes.
I think satire is something that you could naturally do really well.
Yes, I must look into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really enjoy acting, and I'm hoping that I'll do some acting. You know, I might do a cameo role here or there. I want to do some more acting lessons and move into it. But I think to just be an actor is a huge commitment.
Yeah, of course.
I watch a lot of movies. I like good acting is amazing to watch. But I'm not sure that I could set myself apart to just be an actor. Even I could do that at my age. Some actors started very late in life.
Yes.
But I want to do this traveling and sharing and speaking, and I want my own label. Why do I want my own label? Because I know what I like to wear, and I often don't find it.
Yes.
So I'd quite like to create a line of clothing. I intend to create a line of cravats.
I've seen that. You love a good
I do.
cravat.
I do. I'm wearing one today.
Yeah.
It's quite a wintry version in velvet, but and there's a whole story around that too. You know, and neckties are nooses. They're tied as a noose. They're restrictive. I feel they're limiting, whereas a cravat can be. It's freer. It's easier.
Yes.
It's more.
Yes.
It can be flamboyant, but it can be discreet. So I think that the cravat should come back, not as a formal Edwardian ascot, but just sometimes a neckerchief.
Yes.
Men are wearing scarves tied at their neck, and it's okay. You know, I grew up as a gay man, and so I'm familiar with being a minority.
Okay.
And things not being okay. So I had to deal with that. And I think in fashion, it's important to find freedom. I mean, the reason why I am, how shall I say this? How shall I broach it? Because you haven't asked me, but I want to share it because it's who I am now, really. So I'm now in a relationship with a very supportive partner, my partner Nick, who does all my content.
Oh, he's the one who shoots it?
Everything.
I was actually going to ask you, when you're walking around the city, who's there actually shooting all of that?
Exactly. No, it's Nick. So, and that's challenging in itself, but I've got my sort of built-in videographer, which is amazing. So we can do a lot together.
Does he handle all of your socials then?
He does.
Okay.
He does.
He's doing a really good job.
He is. It's fantastic. Yeah. So all credit to him. And together we want to take that package to travel and to into other areas because he has the skills just with a good phone.
Sure.
Sometimes with a camera. He has a good camera, so he will also... So that's a tremendous bonus for me, and it's made it easier to express myself.
Yes.
Because someone's capturing the moments.
Sure.
My arms aren't long enough to do that. So also that is, after, that was also a becoming authentic moment for me when I realized that having had a family and having completed that chapter in my life, I moved into a different chapter. And in terms of my life and my work, I have these different roles that I can play comfortably.
Sure.
I am a father.
Yep.
5 times over. That's
5 times
quite a
over.
lot of experience.
Yes.
I am a gay man,
Yep.
so I've had that experience. I have been in a marriage for 15 years. I have that experience. So the only point that I want to make from making that comparison to others is that I can speak to those roles. But when you put a label on me,
Yes.
it doesn't really sit or fit.
Yep.
Like Marty's gay. Yes.
But
no,
Marty is also a lot of other things.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be limited because of a label that someone's going to apply to me.
Yeah.
So I can't deny being old. I've been here for 65 years on the planet.
Sure.
But my inward life is 30 years, 30-something, 40 at the most. And that comes through. So I suppose what I want to say around labels, getting philosophical, is for me a label is something that defines, yes, but also divides. Because when you label something, you set it aside from other things. You say, this is this, and this is that.
Yeah.
The whole problem with the world right now
Is that everything's labeled, everything's in a box.
everything's in a box, everything's categorized. And then according to the label,
Yep.
there's a certain way to be treated, so as you're not offended, perhaps.
Yes.
And what we need, and I'm speaking to everything now, this is my nugget, which should have come at the end.
Yeah, well, close.
We need connection.
Yeah.
We must find connection. The problems that are happening in the world are problems of disconnection. I'll name some names just to get political. Gaza. Disconnection on an unspeakable scale.
Yes.
The sort of disconnection where you cannot even see straight. You're so bombarded with different messages. You're so divided. There is no meeting.
Yes. And in the midst of all that, you lose your humanity.
You do. And that's all that we have is our humanity.
Yes.
And our humanity is not based on our label,
Yes.
where I was born, my religion, my culture. Our humanity is based on who we are as individuals.
Yes.
Uniquely.
Yes.
All of us are absolutely different.
Yes.
There are no two of us alike. So we must find our expression through that God-given, shall I say, individuality. It's our unique gift. We mustn't lose that. But without connection, we're just lost.
Sure.
And life becomes so ugly. And division is something that grows and expands. So we're in this such a divided world at the moment. And for my part, I want to show connection.
Sure.
How do we do that? Now, I'm not a leader of a country, and I'm not pretending to be anyone that I'm not, but I truly feel that the key to finding connection is to step back, not step in and look at the details of something, because you will find the points of difference and focus on those and magnify those. The key is to step back. Some major things have happened in my life which were life-changing. I won't go into the details. They're in my book. They changed my life when they happened. They were traumatic events by anyone's standards. And how I survived that and grew beyond that and developed from that was by stepping back, because that enabled me to put things in perspective.
Sure.
I had lost my perspective. I was stuck in the details and being drawn down into this dark hole. And by stepping back, which is a choice, you literally step back and you can see clearly. And then you can not only see your options, because you have a broad view,
Sure.
like an objective view, a God view, if you like, to use that word. That's a position of strength, I think. And then you can choose.
Yeah.
And you can see the connections that you can't because you're too involved in the detail of something.
To add to that point, I recently saw this interview of Shashi Tharoor the other day. He's an Indian author. He made a very good point about the different, like you said, everyone's boxed in a specific category, and you can't see the overlaps. Everybody's so hyper focused on the differences between ourselves. He says that in a lot of developed countries or developing nations, we have the concept of tolerance. And in a lot of religions, we have the concept of tolerance, that we need to tolerate each other. He says that is the wrong way to go about it.
I agree.
Tolerance means that I have the truth and you have something else.
Yes.
But I am tolerating you.
It's a very weighty word, tolerance. You can't really, it's not neutral.
Yes.
In any way.
In place of that, in place of tolerance, what needs to be there is acceptance. Acceptance means that I have one truth, you have another truth. I will respect your truth as long as you respect mine.
Yes.
And in the middle of all that, we can get along.
That's very wise.
Yeah.
Acceptance.
Acceptance. Rather than tolerance.
Yes. Not acceptance of them. Acceptance of the other point of view.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Correctly.
Yes.
Correctly.
And there need be no conflict.
Yeah.
So
based on all of that, before I let you go, I guess
we've
that
solved the problem to the world. Next.
So I think that you've already covered the nugget of truth.
I think that's it. For me, it was.
Yes.
I mean, I will share this. It's something quite beautiful. It's very, very personal. It's very vulnerable. And you will have the chance to edit this out.
Sure. Of course.
So there's a long story about this, but I'll keep it short. When I came back to New Zealand in 1994, through a series of events, my brother, who was younger than me, and my father were murdered in Wellington in New Zealand. Now, that's not the sort of thing that happens to most people. And, you know, people may look at me and think, oh, he's had a great life. He's clearly a very privileged, entitled sort of, he's come from a whatever. I came from a comfortable family. I had a lovely life for a long time, but it was just destroyed overnight and had to be reconstructed because the pillar of my life, 2 pillars in my life were removed in an instant. Now, I'm not a victim. I don't play the victim. I don't think that I do. I hope that I don't. I'm very strong in myself, and I decided I had to find a way to come through this situation, these circumstances that had come so suddenly into my life.
Sure.
And I have succeeded in moving away from that traumatic experience. In fact, it has strengthened me and has enabled me to become the person I am today in a strange way. I had to change and grow from that experience. But what I wanted to say is that as part of that experience and as part of the healing that was necessary for me from the shock of what happened,
of course,
I had what I would call a vision.
Okay.
I would describe it as a vision. It was very clear to me, and I was at home shortly after this happened, and I saw 2 spots of blood, and I realized that they represented my brother and my father. And I watched these spots of blood. I knew what they meant, and then the scene moved away from me very rapidly. So it was like I was being drawn back from it. And it was like a mosaic that appeared before me. I'd describe it like seeing a Persian carpet. So suddenly there were these spots of red, and then suddenly there was these incredible patterns, and the blood disappeared into this mosaic that was just, I can't describe it. Sometimes you might have seen a tapestry or a rug that is so beautiful you just stare at it because it's so intricate, it's so magnificent. The way the colors, the patterns, that's what I was seeing. And as I drew back and back and back, it became more and more, it was like a psychedelic experience almost, where I was like, this is the universe, this is life, this is beautiful. And what happened to you is a part of that beauty. And in some ways, it enabled me to accept what happened. Previously, I wouldn't accept what had happened. I was holding all that stuff, which is a very unhealthy state. And I could, perhaps it was a kind of grief. I think we all grieve in different ways. And for me, part of my grieving process that was necessary to come back into homeostasis, to come back into myself, was I got married and had a family. It was my choice. Total different direction of energy, but something that I'd always wanted to do.
You wanted to feel grounded.
Yes. Well, am I a grounded person? I always say, I've got my feet on the ground, but my eyes on the stars.
Yeah.
And that's a stretch.
Yeah.
It is really important to be grounded. And nature's a big part of that.
Yep.
I think if I had not become a model, I would be David Attenborough. Seriously.
Really?
I love nature. I love animals. I've had so many
Sure.
exotic pets in my life, and I love the beauty of nature.
Sure.
And I would have gone down that path 100%. It was my top subject at school was biology, and I had steel rimmed glasses and long hair, and I was a real nerdy type. I haven't always been this this model type.
Lovely. But amazing. I mean, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the vulnerability.
Well, yes, it is. At the time, I knew what the meaning of that was, and it was like a gift to make it okay somehow. And I do believe that we need to have this huge reserve of forgiveness and vulnerability, because when we put shields up, we just wither. We wither and die.
Yep.
We're not here to protect ourselves
from
offence of any kind.
Yes.
We're here to be vulnerable. We're strong. I think that many people are unaware of how powerful and how complete we are internally in our higher self, if you like. And we just need to allow that to strengthen us.
Yep.
Because it's very easy now to be challenged. To be bullied, all of these things can happen to you, but there is nothing going on out there that can't be resolved by finding connection. I don't mean to be trite or cliche, but I do believe that there's a solution to everything, and we just need to find those and allow those solutions to happen. Be big-hearted enough and shut down our questioning minds sometimes, and act intuitively.
I think that's a lovely point to maybe end the conversation on. But thank you so much for, the vulnerability of it. And walking into the conversation, I had no idea that, we would be talking about this. But what I do appreciate is that from the outside, looking at somebody who's living this larger than life persona, who's got, he's in fashion, he's a model, he's international, he's riding on helicopters and doing all of this. Supposedly, from a third person's perspective, this is the life that you got to be living. But then you talk to the person and you realize that he is just as human, as vulnerable, and as broken as all of us are.
Yes, yes.
And so I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity for sharing that, because not all of my comments are kind. 90-something percentile, which is really lovely. But I do get the odd person, and I wouldn't call them a hater. I don't like the H word, and I try to use it as little as possible. But there are conflicting comments, and that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, their point of view, as I am. I'm sharing my opinions on Instagram.
Yep.
I'm not saying this is how you must live, this is how you must dress.
Yeah.
But what you see in those, and this is old news, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on social media, in many ways, you are seeing a fake world.
You're seeing a filtered world. A filtered world.
Filtered is a good word. It's a euphemism for fake.
Yes.
Isn't it?
It is.
Now, am I that person? I am. That's me. I'm wearing my clothes.
Yes.
I'm being cocky. I'm being funny. I'm doing these beautiful things. I'm living this rich life. What's the reality? Well, on Instagram, there are often some either-or posts, and they say, what's Instagram and what's reality? And they're often very diverse. I may not have... I'm just aware that I need to keep it real. It's very important. Or because there is a lot of hype, a lot of salesmanship. And it's kind of like an extended family, the followers.
Yep.
And they need to be treated with respect.
Yes.
As much as we need to be treated with respect.
Sure.
So that will be the challenge going forward, is keeping it real. And I think there will be more sharing about life.
Yep.
I'm about to embark on something which has already started with my sister, who's in New Zealand, and she's very similar to me, but she's not as public. And she's working on something with me called Perfect Health. And it's really about the idea of a group who come together to have a conversation about what health is really about, how to facilitate it, and how to help someone who isn't finding the answers that they want.
Sure.
Yeah. goodness knows there are a lot of sick people now, and there are a lot of people whose health's not ideal. And it's important to have a conversation going around that. You know, nothing's really taboo anymore. We can talk about whatever, and we should use that to find solutions.
Sure.
We should use that freedom to find better ways of living.
Lovely.
So that's a firm direction for me. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able to speak like this about the things that matter to me.
Yep.
Not from my degrees, but from my experience.
From your experiences.
With respect and with honesty. I mean, I don't pretend to be who I'm not.
Yep.
But there's lots to draw on. And I suppose when you talked earlier about the younger models and the older models, you just can't put a value on that life experience. So you know you're not going to have an 18-year-old walk down the catwalk with the same vibe, for instance, the runway, as a 60-year-old. Because there's this presence, I suppose, that comes from experience. And it reads somehow. So my goal is to move into that area, and I feel that it's the more mature market is a big market commercially and also for fashion. We are the people who buy the clothes, who buy those expensive suits. So we should be wearing them. Sure. That's one of my quests, is to get the silver back on in the magazines.
Lovely. I suppose by the time this podcast comes out, I'll have a link to your book, Slice of Heaven. It'll be available in the description for this podcast. If you guys want, you can click on the link and access Marty's book that focuses on his life. Also, by the time this podcast comes out, hopefully you'll have something up and running with your sister on Perfect Health.
It's already underway.
I'll definitely post a link to that as well. And considering that we have so much more to talk about, there are so many bits and pieces that we touched upon. Maybe we can have you on again at some point and delve deeper into...
That would be nice. I'd like that. Yes, this journey, I hope it will happen rapidly now. So hopefully in a few months there'll be lots of change and results to share.
Amazing.
There is still a lot in my past that we haven't talked about, which is extraordinary, but you didn't ask the question, so I didn't pose the answers. But in the book is the story of us, living as a family on a private island. All the children being home birth, born at home. All 5 were born at home.
Wow.
All 5 were homeschooled until the eldest was 12. Oh. So these are quite extraordinary things which have been a big part of my life.
Yeah, and these are experiences that not a lot of people go through.
Yeah. So, and that the idea was to give my children a base in goodness before introducing them to the real world.
Yeah.
History, war, horrors, all the horrors of everyday life. I think the young child needs to be protected for a little while from the sharp edges of reality. Until they're at a certain age, and then they need a good base to take on the world and all of its, it can be heavy, life.
Lovely.
It has its ups and downs, so it's important to find a path through that, and I guess that's what, in the broadest sense, that's what I'm about, is helping.
And definitely earmark that, because, as a young father, raising young kids, little children, that's a conversation I'd find very close to my own heart, something I'd find very relatable.
It's a lot of joy, though. A lot of joy.
Yeah. But once again, Marty, thank you so much for being on. This has been a fan moment for myself. I followed your content, and to actually have to sit down and have a conversation with you, very enlightening, and lovely to see you that, beyond the post and beyond the filters of Instagram.
Thank you.
You're as lovely a person to meet in person.
I hope it's not too far removed.
No,
I hope I'm believable in real life.
100%. Now we'll get another look into the life of Marty Thomas pretty soon in some other follow-up episodes.
I'd love that.
Thank you so much. And for all of you guys, if you enjoyed the episode, kindly give us a comment, give this episode a like, follow the podcast. If you haven't done so already, here are all of our social media platforms. All of the highlights from this conversation and all of my past conversations are going to be up there, so do check that out. Until next time, you've been listening to In the Gap. I'm Hussain, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.